G'day legends, I hope that you're doing really well. Now we have another interview, and this gentleman will have to stay anonymous both by voice and by photographs, which have had some slight altering just to hide anything that could identify this man. Now I'd like to thank him very much for coming on and speaking to me. We've known each other for many months now, but just have not been able to actually link up a time, being very busy. I'd like to thank you guys again for watching and supporting these interviews. Also, I'm always looking for more guests for interviews from different battles, different armies, whatever. So please point them in my direction or me in their direction if you can think of someone who would be good for this. Thank you very much. Enjoy. Well, firstly, look, I'll start recording. But firstly, I just want to thank you for actually, you and I getting in touch. Shit, it must be a good few months now that we've actually been in touch and meaning to do this.
Yeah, but I haven't really done any interviews. I kind of stay away from that just because it's not really my thing, I'd like to kind of post on social media about my life and, personal stuff, Nothing. I hate when I see people running to the media and try to make a big story about everything.
Yeah, I can completely understand that from your end, absolutely. But look, thank you so much for actually doing this with me, reaching out, back and forward, chatting and whatever. And I just really want to ask, why in the beginning did you go to Ukraine? I just sort of set up a bit about who you are and what this means to you.
So I got out of the U.S. Marine Corps in 2019. I did 4 years, and I enjoyed it a lot. And I was trying to. Okay, let me rewind even more because it's a really long story. So when I was 17 years old, I tried to join the YPG in Syria, and I only got to Germany, and I was about to board the plane to Iraq, and I was like, "What am I doing with my life? Fucking 17, 18 years old. No direction, no nothing." So I was sat in Germany for a bit, and I was just thinking what I should be doing, and I ended up flying back to USA. I ended up joining the U.S. Marine Corps, and I did my 4 years, and I enjoyed it, but I was still wanting more. I still wanted to go fight. I wanted to see the world, and I remember seeing all these other foreigners going and just taking the off-beaten path, And got to 2019, and I still had that itch I wanted to do, and I contacted a guy who was in the YPG, and he's saying, "Yeah, everybody's up and left. It's over, man. You missed it." And they're just fighting the Turkish military, which is something I wanted to stay away from because it's an ally, and that you can get caught for terrorism. So he's like, "Yeah, just come over to Ukraine and I'll help you out then." And so I got in contact and I started speaking more and more with them. And coincidentally, I spoke to a guy off Instagram who was a Ukrainian, and he said, "Yeah, I recommend this unit." And there was maybe 5 foreigners at the time. I ended up quitting my job, leaving my girl, just going, and yeah, the Ukrainian people and the history and the culture, it kind of just resonated with me, and I really enjoyed my time here for the last 3 years about.
So you'd been in Ukraine for 3 years, so like a year and a half
prior.
A
little over 3 years, actually.
Yeah, right. And what was it that first attracted you to go to Ukraine?
Just kind of doing my own thing, and I remember reading a whole bunch of stuff in history books about the volunteers of World War One and World War Two, and all these African mercenaries. I know I don't want to be associated with that, but I remember seeing Alan Seeger was his name. He wrote "I Have a Rendezvous with Death."
Yes,
he was an American who went to France before the USA got involved, and he became an ambulance driver, and that really was one of my pushes. Just kind of I'm not gonna say choose that lifestyle, but that was an inspiration for me, and seeing these foreign battalions of the Spanish Civil War and World War II going over, and I really like that, and I kind of wanted to be I wanted to be remembered, I wanted to do something and look back on when I'm 80 years old and have something different.
Yeah. Right, and how did that change for you when when the first parts of this war then kicked off, or were you serving
Yes, I was still
prior?
serving. So I was in the southern region of Ukraine,
Yes.
near. I'm not really exactly sure, but it was either Mykolaiv. No, it was Odessa. I was on some base, and I remember um, it's like a day before the Russian peacekeepers. They do that with fingers, but they walked into the Donbass region, and we're all playing Uno. And we're like, "Fuck!" We knew something was gonna go down, but at the same time, we didn't. We thought this whole war would just, it wasn't gonna happen. It was gonna be just a continuation of the stalemate. I
Mm.
remember it was 5:30 in the morning, and my commander rushes in. He said, everybody get the fuck up," and they throw RPDs and magazines, and they were just loading. And I still couldn't believe it. And I still, for like 2 hours after, what is going on? And then in the distance, I hear from the Russian missiles hitting different targets around the Odessa region, and the ride into the city was very. It was some. I remember everything so perfectly. We were one of the only few vehicles heading towards what was coming, and on the sides of the road, there were hundreds of people walking, trying to escape, using the grocery stores, emptying the bank. How do you say, ATMs? It was just madness.
Mm. That first, and I can't imagine what it was like for yourself, but that first 24, 48 hours, 72 hours, it was fucking madness. It was it was madness.
I still hadn't even told my family I was actually in Ukraine.
Oh
I
wow.
would be telling them for the last like two years. I was studying in Spain, or just around Europe, just doing my thing. But I never told them I had joined the military.
Yeah. When did they find out?
Maybe about 2 or 3 weeks in, I was still in Odessa, and I remember like I can't hold this in anymore. I was on a block post, and I finally just called my family and said, "I'm just here. If anything happens, I just want to give you a heads up." And like, well, I can't stop you from doing what you want to do, and as long as you're happy and you're safe, like somewhat safe,
Mm.
that's all I care about. And yeah, then nothing happened. I thought they would be more, you know, frightened and upset, but not at all. They were very supportive.
Yeah, that's great. And how, some of the notes you've sent me here are a lot about
Yes.
and a lot about gripes. And if people see me peering off camera, I'm reading notes about like gripes in amongst a lot to do with the foreigners coming across. And I sort of just want to put quickly, how has some of the attitude changed? I guess from because you've got experience between. I like to say there's almost two fronts. This war. There's the 14 to 22 front, like the 14 to Feb 24 front, and then there's like the post that of like the full scale invasion. How has like the attitudes of the foreigners changed from then? Was it before that there was these real serious guys who really gave a shit, and now from reading this, it sounds like people sort of trying to seek some Hollywood fame action?
Definitely. So, for back in the day, you had foreigners coming. It was very low key. It was people coming in with masks, or they were just they were. I don't want to say they're like a different ideology, but they're much more real. Is what I want to say. They were very low key. They do their things. They're prior military. They were no shit. You like they did. They wouldn't put up with anything at all. And now it's very selfie warrior, influencer, people who come over for 2 weeks at a time, get as many photos as they can and leave, or they'll experience one shelling and post about it on social media and go home. And I know a lot of Ukrainians now have definitely. I'm not going to say they've turned their backs on foreigners, but if they hear a foreigner is coming to the unit, before they'd be like, "Oh wow, cool! Like we can learn something from this." But now it's someone getting in the way. And sadly, I've spoken to one commander, and they said from all the way from up top that commanders don't even want to deal with these foreigners, and some units have already started blanket bans on foreigners from even joining. That's how bad it's on.
Yeah, wow. And it's a real pity, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. We could still be helping these people, and it's not like that anymore, man. It's people coming for their own personal gain to put money in their bank account. And a lot of these, I always see like conspiracy theorists be like, "Oh, everybody in Ukraine is getting rich," but no, it's not. It's the only reason these people are getting rich is because foreigners are scamming, and I never see Ukrainian scam. It's just foreigners.
The idea that Ukrainians are getting rich is fucking stupid.
Yes.
People don't understand. People come from a small town somewhere and don't understand. Ukrainian villages aren't like your small country town. A lot of Ukraine is very, very poor. You know, the photos you see of partying and stuff in Kyiv or Odessa, that is your 1%. The idea that money's going into Ukraine and it's lining the pockets of the average Ukrainian is bullshit. There's a lot of money flowing into Ukraine, and I would absolutely say there are people, you know, some powerful people getting their pockets lined, and we've seen that happen again and again. But it's not the average Ukrainian.
That's like that in every conflict, no matter who it is or what's
of course.
happening.
Man, if it was some babushka who was skimming $100 off the top, I'd be like, fucking good on you, because, you know, at the end of the day, it's going to buy you food and maybe make you some comfort and whatever. But it's not. It's these guys coming in from the West, or these already rich people who can take advantage of it, just like we've seen in every war.
And I remember seeing about 2 weeks ago, there was this post that really irked me, and it was this American crying about how McDonald's in Kiev was so great and how they're using the U.S. tax dollars to fund this. Like, what the hell are you? These people have no idea what they're talking about, and they can just come here and see. That's just not, you know, money trucks aren't being dropped off and people coming in and filling up their pockets. It's not like that at all.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of there's so much information on both sides of this war. It's quite impressive, actually. What is it that you think the media get wrong? Like, what is it that you see online? And I consider Twitter and whatever as media now. What is it that you think most people get wrong about this conflict?
I think that a lot of these people think Ukraine is just one giant battlefield, and like when you think of Ukraine now, you think of Bakhmut, you think of Zaporizhia, you think these battles of just constantly going. You think all of Ukraine is like this, but it's just the front. If you were to go maybe back even 3 kilometers, in like Kherson, the city is it's repopulating, and even then, another 50 kilometers rear to Mykolaiv, the city is completely normal again. They think that this is just one big battlefield.
And have you fought in those areas?
Yes. So I'm not going to say. So when people think fought there as well, they think of gun battles and house to house and in the trenches. Yeah, I've gone to the trenches and I've gone to positions multiple times, plenty of times, and I've never seen an enemy. I just get artillery strikes. Like, that's another thing too. So they think it's just one big giant gun battle, but I've been here 3 years and I've never seen a Russian. I've been hit with artillery countless times, with rockets, with mortars, AGS, with everything you could think of, but I've never seen a Russian, even a tank and a drone.
Yeah. And that's something that is very, very common amongst guys who I guess aren't talking shit, is they're like, man, you don't see the enemy. And you hear this from battles 100 years ago, and you hear it from modern battles through many different theaters around the world, that it's very uncommon to actually see the enemy.
Yeah, it's just the distance, the noise in the distance, or that's all it is. But I never see Russians.
Yeah. And what is your feeling towards the Russians? You know, you were there pre-24th of February now. What do you feel against, I guess, the Russian people and then the Russian soldiers?
Russian soldiers, it is very much a strong hate, because they've done a lot of atrocities, and they do execute our guys. That is one thing they like. People say, "Oh, the Russians, they don't." At least far right people are like, "Oh, Russians don't do this." They're trying to save the Ukrainian people, but that's not it at all. There's this thinking that they're going to liberate all these areas and people are going to come open arms to them, but no, it's not like that at all. The Ukrainians always fighting towards them, and yeah, they've executed some of our guys, and not even it's not like a rare occurrence either, because I've spoken to some other foreigners and they've had the same thing where they will have a soldier go missing for a few days, and then they'll fly a drone, or the Russians will retreat and they find them lined up with their hands behind their back, just shot in the head. And I remember too, there's this Russian propaganda that the Ukrainians are very against them, and they would pick on Russian speakers and just treat them like dog shit. You know, I'm sorry if I'm cussing, but
that's fine.
Yeah, so they would say, "Oh, the Russians are bad. Oh, if you caught speaking Russian, you're gonna get beat up," and all this other crazy things. But in my time here, I've never seen that at all. That was never an issue. The only like law that I've seen where it's against Russian speakers is you have to have Ukrainian wording and spelling on a documents, like official documents. That's the only thing I've ever seen. But there was no general hate towards them. Now there's definitely this generations of hate. You know, these kids who are being brought up in this, so they're gonna see this for the rest of their life and continuously hate, and they're gonna tell their grandchildren and their grandchildren. It's gonna be a cycle of this hate for them. Russian population, it's 50-50. We all see them as kind of like robots and zombies, and yeah, they're people, but they are exposed to the Russian media 24/7, and it's all state controlled. So it is what it is, you know.
Yeah, it's a very interesting. I find that the population there interesting because a lot of Russian people still have full access through VPNs to Instagram and Telegram, and especially Telegram and all these other chats. So I somewhat think, and I've even been, I can accuse myself of doing this. It was saying, oh, the Russian population only have access to their state media, and I'm like, oh, not really. Like, I'm able to talk to, like, as you've seen, I've interviewed a Russian soldier, and I'm able to do that, and I'm part of the media. Like, they've got a fair bit of access. It's, I don't know, it's a very weird thing. About how the soldier, and that's why I always ask, is I'm very interested in how combatants see the civilians on the other side of this war, whether you see them as like active participants, and I'm not meaning participating in combat, I mean participating in supporting that effort, or just they're civilians that don't know what's going on.
It's a mix of both, definitely. Yeah, the average civilian we don't see as a combatant just because they support Russia. Yeah, they're fucking idiots, but it's their choice to choose, and we hope that they continue to see what is happening here, and maybe something will change their mind. But it's a very weird situation, as you say.
Yeah. So, look, I do want to go over some of these these notes you've sent me, and look, feel free, man, to swear, to carry on, whatever. This is completely open. You can say whatever you want, and your identity will be hidden by myself, and I'll the only one who will bloody know. But I do think it's very interesting, and a lot of what you say to me, both on chat and through this, is stuff that a lot of my trusted guys, guys who are actually hitters like yourself, are saying. So I like the top of the note is just prefaced with "why foreigners are shit."
Trust me, this is a small list. This was 5 minutes of me and another guy just kind of jolt down off the top of our head some of the things we've seen and some of the problems. But it's going to be like a 100-page book.
Well, let's start at that something that's not in this note. Why are some foreigners very good? Because, for some, who absolutely spoil it, what goodness, for want of a better term, do foreigners actually bring to Ukraine and some of the units, especially in the beginning of this?
So a lot of them were coming. Okay, so the originals were coming with a good amount of knowledge. They were very eager to teach and learn, and a lot of these people could adapt to the surroundings, and they wanted to be a part of Ukraine. And I feel like now it's more the main character syndrome where they don't want to learn the language, they don't want to do anything. They want Ukraine to change and change to their standards and their needs. So like if something isn't NATO standard, they will flip out and they're like, oh, I can't do this, we can't do this, this is gonna get us killed. But they need to understand it's not Iraq, it's not Afghanistan. These are Ukrainians. They have a way of doing things. You can't just yell at them and treat them like a recruit.
And that main character syndrome in these notes, you say many foreigners, mainly American or British, have main character syndrome. Can you speak on that?
Yeah, so again, I've noticed they come in and they act like they can't get hit. So there was this one instance where we were on a position and this I don't want to say his nationality, but we told him, bro, there's a drone outside. Be very wary. Like, only go outside if you need to go outside, because it's constantly, there's a drone up right now, and within like 5 minutes, more are going to come, because that's what they do. They'll send out one and they'll send like an FPV or another DJI with a grenade. So it's like surveillance and attacking. And he was like, I don't care. It is what it is. They're Russians. They're stupid. They're conscripts. They're poorly trained compared to me, and that kind of thinking and mentality gets us killed. And it's this, like, again, the same dude did this multiple times. And later on, in a few missions later, when this happened again, he got spotted by a drone and went to go take a shit. He was sitting on the toilet and a tank shot near and blew the roof off his toilet, and he ran back and almost got the other guys killed. It's it's very crazy.
Jesus, that is
funny. Or here's another example too. So they'll come in, make a big mess, and then they'll leave and do some type of podcast or write a book about their 2 weeks here. They really didn't do much or contribute anything to Ukraine. And now they have some fan base or following on Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube of, re-showing the same footage and events over and over again. And I don't understand it.
Yeah. Well, there's money in it, mate. Money is the root of all evil. There's money in books, There's money in podcasts, there's money in all this shit. There's money in Instagram and Twitter
I've seen personally guys who came here with good intentions, and then they get a taste of the donation money and how quickly and easy it is to access it, and it just corrupts them. Soon they stop buying the gear they need, the food, the fuel, and then they take this money and they go buy prostitutes, they go buy drugs, they do whatever the hell they want to do. Yeah. And when you try to call them out, you have 1,000 people on Twitter and Instagram attacking you because they could never do anything wrong, because they see one side of the coin. They see whatever they want to post, and that's it.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. So going through this, it's like we're down here, humanitarians just being sex tourists who do the bare minimum, snapping selfies. I can't read the name here. With prostitute, Kherson left and skipped villages between Mykolaiv and Kherson. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, did you say the guy's name? Because if you can just blur that out if you did.
I don't. No, I said I couldn't read it, I think.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, so this is also another thing. So when the Kherson flooding first happened and they destroyed the Novokakhovka dam, all these villages, all these areas became completely just flooded and up to the roofs in water. Many people drowned, animals displaced, people just stranded on islands, and you saw within 24 hours hundreds of thousands of volunteer vehicles coming in, and that's great. Like, I love the sport. I love seeing that. But from Mykolaiv to Kherson, there's still villages that were out there, and no one helped them at all. We went in there a week after the flooding had started, and we said, "Hey, have you received anything?" And the villager said, "We haven't seen any like outsider or anybody in like 7-8 months since the liberation." And they were just basically just fending for themselves. And then the prostitute experience that I saw. So again, this was another volunteer. They said, "Hey, let's go meet this volunteer. Apparently, he wants to come help." We go to his residency. We go say hello, and then immediately when he pops out, you see a prostitute just leave his house. I'm like, okay, we know this guy isn't here to actually help. He's just doing his own thing, on an overstayed visa, doing whatever he wants to do and posting whatever he wants to see, whatever he wants people to see. And that was that.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's true. Ukraine was a place people went for sex tourism both before and after this war. But a lot of the money now that's being spent is meant to be in, as you'll say, meant to be humanitarian or soldiers or whatever, that's being absolutely spent on other things.
And I wish you could have seen when the water receded back to normal level. All these vehicles, within a week, they were gone. No, if I go outside now, no one would be there. I would not see one humanitarian or aid truck other than maybe like World Kitchen.
Yeah. Are there any groups that are doing good that you see all the time?
World Kitchen is definitely one of them. Red Cross, kind of. I see them occasionally, but other than that, I really don't see humanitarian out here anymore.
Yeah.
They've gone back to Kiev or Mykolaiv.
Yeah, World Kitchen, man. And it's funny you say it because I've said the exact same. When late last year, working out of Kramatorsk and working in those regions, the only humanitarians I saw was World Kitchen. That was it. I didn't no one else. But there was meant to be like thousands of humanitarians working there. But that whole region from New York through Bakhmut up to Seversk, World Kitchen was the only people I'd seen the whole fucking time.
Yeah, even when artillery's dropping down on the city, you'll see World Central Kitchen just out there still giving out meals. They're definitely, I give them props, and they don't get enough spotlight as they should.
Yeah. So in this as well, you've got Ukraine has been hijacked by NAFO/worthless people who come to take a selfie and leave.
That's kind of just like a personal opinion, but even too on Twitter and all that. I hate bringing up Twitter because Twitter is just the most scummy website imaginable.
Yeah.
And I always see women just single middle-aged divorcee women posting up NAFO memes, showing off their tits. My Russophobia is stowed in my tits. Come on, they're using Ukraine just to get likes and comments and donations to buy me a coffee or all this other stuff.
Yeah.
And also I've seen too a lot of these I don't know how to say it, but they attach whatever ideology or sexuality or whatever nonsense they want to Ukraine, so they promote it with Ukraine, and they kind of use that as a way of people accepting them and whatever they're promoting.
Yeah, it's one of those things to see with that sort of that NAFO bandwagon is so much hatred in it, openness to dox people, but as well, you've experienced that as well.
Yes.
Yeah. And no criticism. I think criticism in everything. You can criticize anything. And criticism is very, very important. If you can't criticize things, then you have an echo chamber and everything goes to shit. That you can criticize things. You can say things aren't going well or this could be going better. But sorry to cut you off. What was your experience with that?
So these NAFO people will dox and they have this very backwards, and they don't see what Ukraine is actually like. They see it from like a Twitter or whatever they see on the news is what, you know, they try to. Sorry, I'm mixing up my words. They see what what is posted about Ukraine online by their supporters, and it's not like that at all. It's a very conservative, very peaceful, somewhat peaceful now, but old-fashioned society. And a lot of these like NAFO guys have very radical, progressive like views on what Ukraine is when it's not like that at all. And if you try to say, "Oh no, it's not like that," they immediately jump on you and will send their followers and their everything. They'll send everybody at you to trying to get you canceled, try to contact your work. I had somebody try to contact my um, command here in Ukraine saying, "We're gonna get you kicked out because you don't support fat people." I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, that doesn't mean anything in Ukraine.
Yeah, especially when you're there actually fighting and these people are sitting on Twitter with a cat as their profile picture making posts about shit.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one thing. You actually bring up a really good point in that Ukraine is a deeply religious, very conservative country. It's what I would think Europe would have been like 30, 40 years ago. And that's why a lot of people love Ukraine too, like loved going there before the war. Because I see that some of the Western sort of European countries have lost their way a bit, and they love that aspect of it. But some of the like ultra progressive stuff I see, I'm like, that shows me that you've never actually been to Ukraine as well. Don't make out like Ukraine is the same like progressive state as like a Scandinavian country or like it's like. No, that shows me you're sitting in your basement and you're drinking the Kool-Aid of what you're being told. It's not like that.
And we actually had one of these people get attached to my unit, and he did not last very long here at all before he was given the boot.
Right. And what was that for?
It was just his mentality, him trying to. So when he immediately came to us, he was very aggressive and, trying to start arguments of how we should think, how we should accept him. And even though no one said anything bad at all, it's Ukraine. It's a war. We can't be focusing on this. What sexuality you are, what you think, and what you worship. You just come, you fight. That's what we want. This guy was very in your face, like, oh, if you don't basically promote me or my sexuality, you're the enemy. And we let him know within the first week, and then there was other incidents with possible drug use and him just not being mentally stable enough for the war. So we just gave him the boot within 2 weeks, and then immediately takes to Twitter, starts trying to dox us, trying to cause issues, and that was it. And as far as I know, he's been blacklisted from all of the Ukrainian military. He's hiding somewhere in Kiev right now.
Yeah, right. And what about this in your notes of many foreigners behind closed doors will say, fuck Ukraine and yes. Ukrainians, but then the same day praise them online.
Yeah, so I've seen that a lot too. And that's not my team, because my team has been made up of other people who have been in Ukraine for years and love this country, that have ties to the country now. And so this is one thing I've seen. People will basically get heated or something, or when the command doesn't want them to do, when the command tells them to do something and they don't want to do it, they will say like, oh, like fuck Ukraine, fuck Ukrainians, they're all stupid Slavs, they're all backwards hillbillies or stuff like that. And then literally within 24 hours, it'll be the completely opposite. They'll be posting about how Ukraine is this beautiful, great country with a beautiful history and people that are just like them. And I see it all the time. And then you have people commenting like, wow, you're a hero. They really need to appreciate what you're doing. And then they'll throw money.
Yeah. And do you think so much of that is just money donation driven?
Yes, definitely. It's not just money, but it's also building up egos and having like the fan base really pushes it. Like I said, they only see one side of what they post, and
Yeah.
when you try to call them out or you say like, "Hey, I served with this dude. He's actually a piece of shit who doesn't give a shit about Ukraine." They're like, "Oh, he would never do this. He was, you know, his post from two days ago says he loves Ukraine. You're a liar." Like, I served with this guy. I live with him 24/7. I see what he does. I know what he's like. I know what he spends his money on. I know what he eats, drinks, everything about him.
Yeah, that's it. And I want to say the term the currency of clicks too. And I'm an online figure, I guess, who's involved in this. And I'm not immune to the narcissistic feeling that it feels like good being relevant and liked and getting likes online. And I don't know what bit of brain it tickles, but it's like this primitive thing of liking that and wanting that. You can go down that rabbit hole very quickly, man. I'm very open about it, but yeah, people want to be liked and want to be seen to the right thing online more so than in real life, if that makes sense. Like, people would rather real people think they're an asshole, but their Twitter follows think they're a hero, which is just fucking weird. But this like currency of clicks is a real thing, and many people would sacrifice their physical money for like online relevance, if that makes sense.
Yeah, they'll give away more than that, not just money, but I've seen people throw away their families back home, their wives, their kids to come out here and, feed off that positive energy from their followers and supporters online. And I have another example too. Like I said, I was in the Marine Corps and I served with the guy for like a month or two on a course, and we ended up staying in contact. And after I got out, I came here, and he went a different road and wasn't happy with his life at all. I said, "Hey, just come up to Ukraine. You can start over. You can still be in that military, have that brotherhood and camaraderie you're kind of missing." And he's like, "No, fuck you." He literally said, "Fuck Ukraine. I'm not fighting anybody else's war." This is when Donbass had the ceasefire as well. Like, I don't care. Like, I just want to do drugs. Word for word, he said to me, "I just want to do drugs and like drink and sleep with women." Basically word for word. And then when the invasion happened, a weekend, I get a message from him, and he's like, "Hey, bro, sorry I couldn't come anytime sooner. There was just money issues, and will you speak to your commander, let me join you?" I was like, "No, like, fuck you." Like, I know, I remember what you said. I can send you the screenshots right now of you saying, "Fuck Ukraine." And he ended up coming out here, but he lasted maybe a month getting tossed around each, maybe 3 units, because they just didn't want to deal with his bullshit of lying about his military service and all this other craziness.
Yeah, right. And how is it with because you hear some absolute horror stories from like the Legion's command and other commanders out there. What is your take on that?
Excuse me, can you repeat that? Sorry about that.
No, sorry, you hear some horror stories about some treatment towards foreigners from commanders, especially in like the Foreign Legion. What is your take on that?
So it's very concerning because it's like I said, it's foreigners spending their own money, their own time coming out here to help, and some of them do get fucked over by these commands. And I've spoken to some because we've had people from the Foreign Legion itself end up in my unit, which I'm not associated with the Foreign Legion, but we do get some of their guys when they had enough and they want to try to be in like a real Ukrainian unit. And from what I've seen and what I've heard, it's a lot of foreigners causing issues, and that's what it like snowballs, and that's why they fuck over the other foreigners as well.
Yeah. And what's your experience been in your time on Ukraine, not only during this invasion, but before that as well, with things like corruption?
I personally have never seen it. I've never seen any type of corruption in my unit or in another unit, I've heard of corruption maybe once through a news article about someone stealing helmets and gear, but other than that, I've never seen any sort of corruption at all. No missing weapons, no misusing, I don't know, food from the chow hall or stealing pay from other soldiers, nothing like that. Honestly, 100% could say I've never seen corruption.
Right. I guess it definitely differs unit to unit massively then.
Yes, unit, definitely. But I've had friends who have served in like Carpathian SIG, and they definitely saw some corruption. And they used to tell me how weapons would go missing, how they weren't getting paid. I had a guy there for 3 months. He came from Chile, and he would actually come to Ukraine in the early days, like 2015, 2016, to come and help train in right sector. And that was his thing. He always wanted to come to Ukraine and help. And when he finally got that wish and ended up joining in this Carpathian SIG brigade, he described it as a revolving door, as people coming in and just coming out. And that was actually the unit where they had the American who, I think his name was John McIntyre. I'm not entirely sure, but he defected to the Russian side.
Yes. Yeah, right. That's fairly wild with his whole story about that.
Yeah, and there are some units that definitely have a lot of corruption, and it is getting taken care of. That's all I can say.
Right. And what's your experience been with the ideology? You mentioned there, like, right sector. What has been your experience with that, or I guess even your personal feelings towards it? You know, I don't know your political biases, as everyone has them, but, you know, is that something you're attracted to? You're not? Something you've seen? I don't know. Can you just speak on that?
Actually, I have no ill thoughts towards the right sector. When I first came to Ukraine, actually, the guy who was helping me get in with paperwork, he was prior to right sector. He was a foreigner as well, and yeah, and I've had people in my battalion. Now it's the official military, but I've had people who were in right sector that transferred over, and they have all been very good guys. They would serve without pay. They would do any mission you tell them to without complaining. Any gear, it didn't matter. They were just ready to fight and die for Ukraine. And I have nothing but respect for right sector at all.
Yeah, right. And have you seen any ill treatment of like Russian prisoners, any POWs, anything like that?
Personally, I have not. I've seen, because like I'm in a group chat sometimes with my other soldiers in my battalion, and they've come across Russians, and when they post about taking prisoners, they treat them with respect always. They give them first aid. They ask them what's wrong. They need water. They just make sure they're all right. We need Russian prisoners. We can't just go around executing them. We have guys in prison, in Russian prisons, who have been there for months, since the very beginning of the war, just waiting to get traded out. So it's not in our interest to kill these people, not at all.
Yeah, well, that is the stupid thing when you see, this is both sides, and I'll say that there has absolutely been footage of Russians executing Ukrainians and Ukrainians executing Russians. Now, thank God, it's not as common, at least publicly in the video sphere. At least not super common, at least anymore, thankfully. But it's so silly because you're like, well, both of you have soldiers who are POWs on the other side. Killing a POW does nothing for you. You can't swap that back.
You're just throwing away your bargaining chips if you just kill a guy. I'd rather him go get sent to a Ukrainian prison and sit there for a month, just, you know, cleaning and eating, or even they sometimes even send them back to the bases to go do yard work. Like it doesn't make sense to kill them. It's not beneficial at all. And if I was to see that, I would be upset. Trust me, we all would be upset, because we have guys here who we want to see come back, who want to, you know, go back to their families and just be done with this.
Yeah. And Where do you see this going? You've got your finger more on the pulse than someone like I and all these other, I include myself in these dickheads online who are part of this online sphere of content. Where do you think that this counteroffensive currently is going, or your experience, or what you're sort of hearing on the grapevine? How's that going, or where is it going?
It is going, but it's just going slow, and I'm sorry, I just can't really speak on it, but yes, it's slow, but we are seeing results. We are taking ground. We are the best is yet to come, as they say.
Yeah, right. And as well as, we hear, I've never fought the Russians, but you hear, like you mentioned earlier in this, about like that American bloke, I think you said, or one of the Western soldiers being like, whatever, that they're all dumb and slow and shit soldiers are way better trained. How has been your and your colleagues' experience going up against the Russian forces? Is that correct, or are there units? Because I talked to a guy, I won't say his name, but you guys probably know each other, and he was like, man, there are conscript soldiers who are day one, week one, fucking no idea what they're doing, and then we went up against the Chechen SF, and they were fucking good to go. And then went up some VDV, and they were very fucking good as well, doing night raids under nods. So what's your take, and I guess the word on that?
You just got to treat every enemy with the same, I guess, caution. It's even if it's a conscript with an AK, it's still an enemy with an AK. It's just as deadly, So I would just be on my toes constantly. You can't talk down someone just because they have better equipment, talk down someone because they have worse equipment. They can still kill you. So just proceed with caution always.
Yeah. But are there units that are, fairly capable on the ground?
Yes, definitely. And at SU, we have these open source maps we're always looking at, and you can see what units are there and kind of guesstimate what they have. And there are definitely very capable Russians near us.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting because that's just not something that is very shared. And this is, I think, something that, and this goes back to you're allowed to be critical of things, because if the whole idea is that every Russian is just a conscript, they're shit, blah, 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 then it's like,
we would have won already.
You would have won already. Why is the counteroffensive going so slow? Why is there so much bloodshed? You need to say, well, there are units that are shit. There are units that are incredibly capable as well.
And even too, a lot of these people think that these Russians are just small Asiatic people with steel helmets and Mosin Nagants and outdated uniforms, but you got dudes out there with brand new AK-12s, nods, state-of-the-art gear, lightweight plates, everything you can think of, with a ton of FPV support and artillery and all of this. Like, you can't just think the enemy is going to be one type of person, because it's not. There's a big variety of what you're trying to kill out there, and that wants to kill you.
I'm not sure if you've seen any of my stuff. Is there anything that you think that I get wrong, or that I've interpreted wrong, or someone I've interviewed that is incorrect?
Actually, I haven't seen any of your interviews at all. I will just pass your name, like, hey, you should speak to this guy. He's a pretty good dude. He says what he doesn't try to distort the image and interview at all. Just speak your mind, and that's it.
That's the best way to be. But I thought I'd ask just in case, because I've got a lot of people, every time I interview like a foreign soldier, other foreign soldiers reach out and be like, who the fuck's that? They're wrong. And I'm like, oh, fuck. I'm caught in this love triangle. But I just thought that's interesting because, I'm going to get things wrong. People get things wrong. I haven't fought there. And that's why I'm so interested in guys like yourself to actually hand me that like first-hand information. And what do you think needs to improve in Ukraine for better results on the front line?
A little bit more training. I would want to say that's like actually a big thing, but also we need more supplies. We need more ammunition. We need drones. That's another thing. We need FPVs. We could do so much damage. And a lot of these I always see it on Russian Telegram channels because I subscribe and I look at what they're doing and what they post as well to get information. And they're pumping out drones left and right. They have factories where they can produce basically like 100 FPVs in a week, or not even a week, but like a day. And for us, it's very slow. We gotta raise money. We gotta find the right people. We gotta put in some order, and all this takes time, And we have to be very proactive. And a lot of these Ukrainian units they're more reactive, when something bad happens, then they will change what they do. But we need to step it up.
And how deadly are those drones on that front line? Both, like ones from the opposing force and your own.
Very deadly. They don't. So I've been with a drone team before, and they just need to find an area, sit down, fly, and hit. That's it. They can just pull up another one and another one, and it costs them nothing to do this. They can just strap on a RPG head, which they have plenty of, or grenades. Again, they have plenty of, and it puts little to no risk on them. And for us, it's a big thing because we have boats, we have tanks, we have all these other things in, the rear that are still very close and within range, and it's a threat. These little drones can fly into windows, they can fly into doorways, they're very hard to, stop.
Yeah, I saw a video of that today. A Ukrainian drone flying in the fucking window of like one of your, your commie block style apartments, and killing something. I'm like, holy fuck! Like it's completely changed the aspect of warfare.
And it's only like $500, $600 to make.
Yeah.
Plug in the file into a 3D printer, print it out, install the components. That's it.
And in my opinion, I can't think of another weapon system in the last decades that has changed warfare as much as the cheap drone has. Not even close to it. And in my fear is for infantrymen like yourself, is that this is actually probably just the beginning of what we've actually seen these drones are fucking capable of.
Yeah, Ukraine really needs to step it up and just start having some type of factory or workshop. We need these. We need as many as we can get.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes we'll have Russian columns of BTRs and trucks just going down the road like it's nothing because we just don't have the amounts that we need. We can't do anything.
Yeah, that's a disappointment, isn't it? If you could do something, but you don't have the actual physical equipment to do it. And what's next for yourself?
I honestly don't know. I keep saying I'm going to stay and finish the war and live out here, but I really don't know. I'm tired. I'm getting older. I want to start a family. I want to have a wife and kid. I'm just tired.
Yeah. And have you lost many friends out there?
Sadly, I've lost maybe one or two, but that's small in comparison to other units who have lost like tens of people.
Yeah. And if you lost your own life, do you think is that the sacrifice you're willing to make? I guess that's a silly question, but
yeah, it is what it is. It's life is death. I signed the contract. I know what's the risk out here. I knew the risk when I signed the contract for the Marine Corps, and I didn't do anything. But it is what it is. If I die, I die. I've accepted it. I'm happy. I've lived a really good life in a short amount of time.
Yes. And is there any lessons that this war has taught you? Like, if you were writing almost something philosophical about this, is there any like lessons of war and combat that you've learnt?
Just be ready to adapt. Be open to accepting advice and criticism from like a younger soldier's perspective. Don't just be in that one mindset that your way is the right way, because it's not like that at all.
Oh mate, it's very interesting. look, I really do. I really do appreciate you taking time out and talking to me about this and being honest about, some of these dickheads that come out and just trying to do this. The one thing I do want to talk on, but look, mate, is there anything else that you think we haven't talked about that you want to talk about? Get off your chest. We can speak for as long or as short as you like.
I'm not really sure. If you have any questions, I'll answer. Like I said, as truthfully and real as possible. But that hit was a thing that, like I said, I had that big paper of notes, and we hit everything on the head.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm very interested in like that stuff you sent across. And I do appreciate you and your other mate like writing all that out for me. I'm more just like, people love a bit of like, I don't know if you have the term wary in any like war stories you can talk of, or anything like that, or anything people might find interesting.
Like I said, I've never seen the enemy, so every time I go out there, just get hit with artillery and mortars and drones, and there's never really been work is work. That's what I'm gonna say. There's nothing really interesting, but barracks life in Ukraine before the war is very funny. You get paid very little. We had people always begging for money, for food, going to the river, catching crabs, and going out hunting because the food on the base was just so terrible. And it was very old school military. I really miss that kind of life and living in the barracks, like a 1950s Soviet style barracks where you have no privacy at all and you're constantly living and fighting and with your friends and your brothers. And I love that type of life, and I really wish the U.S. military and even the other international militaries would go back to that, because compared to Ukraine, it's very relaxing. You would say you have your own room, you have your own. Maybe you don't have your own kitchen, but you have a shared kitchen and a big lounge, a big walk-in closet, your own bathroom, basically. And yeah, Ukraine, you don't have that at all. You're constantly living with these people. You're training right behind your barracks. You're always on the move, always on a field op. In my first 6 months in the Ukrainian army, I was in the field maybe 5 months.
And you think that makes better soldiers?
Oh, definitely. You're living together, you're being together, you know everything about your other troops, how you train, you're constantly, evaluating each other and how you can get better. It makes a much better soldier. You can trust these people more.
Yeah.
U.S. military is once work is done, people will go to their house off base, and that's it. They'll go lock themselves in their room because they can afford a nice computer or a nice phone, go out clubbing and drinking. But you can never do that. You're kind of forced to just be with each other, and that definitely helps. It makes everything more enjoyable and makes a better troop.
Yeah,
we gotta revert back to the old military. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I get that, man. I know any of the same experience as this, but like at the School of Infantry, say, to when then you go on as a young soldier, then you become like, you work your way through the ranks, you lose that. Like, you're like, oh, I've got more money so I can live off the base, and you're not communal with the boys anymore, you're not doing it, and you're like, you lose a bit of that like arminess. Like, you're like, oh, it's just a 9 to 5 or a 7 to 4 job now. Like, this is just what I do for a gig. It's not like all-consuming, drinking, fighting, fucking everything like with the lads anymore.
And even to Ukraine is very. They were using the term super soldier or universal soldier. They get trained on everything. It doesn't matter if it's our job. We're learning how to do it. We're learning how to fix standard cars, how to drive armored vehicles, how to use grenade launcher, like mounted grenade launchers and machine guns, how to jump out of a helicopter. We've done that before. How to do everything. And I really hope the U.S. military and other military start doing that. Start pushing soldiers and Marines and sailors to learn stuff outside their own job. So if someone goes down or a piece of equipment goes down, they can get that gun up, or that just keep on rolling.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, for sure. It's one thing I noticed working with the Yanks, like with the Americans, is because they seem to have so many people that there's not as much cross training across like individual soldiers. It's like, oh no, this guy just does that he doesn't learn a variety just because it's such a massive organization with people in specific jobs.
Yeah, and in my experience too with the U.S., so whenever I would ask for like trying to do cross training, it's such a pain with the bureaucracy, having to submit a paper that's got to be read by like 1,000 people just to get approved or denied. And Ukraine isn't like that at all. You can just go to the commander and say, "Is there any open courses?" And he'll say yes, no, not to the commander, but to the the platoon commander before it goes to the up top. But they would basically see what's available, and they could send you on a course to do whatever you want to do. And I love that. I just hate the being restrained by your own command like you are in the U.S. military.
Yeah, we're very much the same. The bureaucracy around trying to do external training, trying to do anything is just, it's so counterproductive, man. It's fucking insanity.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff we could be doing, but we're never doing it. Yeah,
for sure. Well, bro, look, unless there's anything else, I really, really do appreciate you coming to talk with me, giving you a perspective, as well as my doors always open, both privately and publicly, to reach out and vent or talk shit or put something on here. I'm always available, man. Sorry, what did you say?
I said I definitely talk shit.
Oh yeah, no, it's good. No, well,
yeah, if you ever have questions or want to experience Ukraine again with my unit, just give me a heads up and I'll try and show you around.
Fuck, man, that'd be I think it'd be pretty wild cruising around with you lads.
Get on a boat, cross the river, assault a position. Who knows? Jesus
Christ, yeah, I don't know if I'm I don't know if I'm up to that. You guys with your fucking guns and me with my camera just on the boat, I might get fucking smoked. Maybe I need to do some more running.
No worries.
Easy. Well, bro, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Look after yourself. Look after your boys out there, as well as any of your boys that want to talk, whatever, including yourself. Just fucking reach out, man. It's always available.
I'm gonna go. Thank you as well. Take care, man.
Easy, bro. Look after yourself. Okay. Bye-bye.